Part 2, rated PG-13. Experience it in IMAX November 20th.
Okay, I think I've got it down this time. I think I really perfected how to do this. So, here it is for the final time. Nailed it. No, what do you mean it's the exact same one from the Hunger Games? Get out of here with that. But anyway, welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. I apologize for that. That was unprofessional of me, but trust me, it's more professional than what else I could be doing to try to get your attention. But it's November 20th, 2015. Thanksgiving is almost here in 2015, and we've got 5 movies to take a look at today, starting off with the biggest of the new releases, and that is, of course, The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 2, the conclusion of the Hunger Games series, until the prequels would come out about 8 years later, but I've already covered Songbirds and Snakes on this channel, so if you're going to go check out that review, it's out there, but story follows Katniss Everdeen, Jennifer Lawrence once again, as she prepares for her ultimate fight against President Snow, played by Donald Sutherland, the tyrannical capital, and her choices that will defend Panem forever, in the final death-defying 76th Hunger Games. So yeah, we touched on Mockingjay Part 1, and while it's not a terrible movie, it definitely took a lot of the fast energy that Catching Fire had and just went away with it. And, like, yeah, bottom line, it was a bad decision to split this up into 2 movies. I know that Twilight did it, I know the Hunger Games did it, but, yeah, they did it because of the money, but those movies, the second part is definitely the more enjoyable films out of those films in general. And here, that's definitely the case. And probably the biggest problem with the film right from the get-go is the fact that it shouldn't have been a 2-part movie. There was no reason to split this up into 2 films. There were so many moments in both parts that could have easily been condensed down into one film. And I feel like if you did that, this would have been a really, really good ending to the Hunger Games franchise. And because of this, the film suffers because in between all the great action sequences in this, and we'll get to more of that in just a second here, the movie just pads itself out with needless dialogue scenes, way too many fake-outs, too many moments where nothing happens, and don't even get me started on the fake-out endings here. I mean, there's a point where it comes to an end not once, not twice, but 3 times with these fake-out endings, and I feel like I'm watching the 1,000,000,006 fake-out endings from Return of the King. I mean, that's how bad the endings are for this, but I'll try to keep it spoiler-free, but even the last ending, where it does serve as a nice ending to actually mirror the opening scenes from the film and to make it come full circle, they try to make the characters look older and have an expanded family, but it didn't feel like they really tried to make it that way. I mean, look back at Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, and look at what they did to age the characters. That looked better than what they did here. Here, they didn't even bother to try with it. And I don't know if it's just me, but maybe I'm just getting... Maybe this was something that kind of bugged me, because, you know, when I saw this movie, of course, you got the teen audience who's going to be pouring in here to see the conclusion of the storyline here. But the screening I went to see this for, I saw it with a bunch of squealing and screaming teenage girls that would not shut the fuck up every time Katniss and Peeta shared a scene on screen where they kissed or got back together. And I understand why, but those girls were screaming way too much. They were forcing it. Like, it was only during the scenes with those 2 in there and nothing else. Even the people sitting next to me had this look on their face like, God, shut up. Like I don't usually get upset during a movie and try to keep my composure, but that was one of those times where I was literally just like, I was this close to telling them to shut the fuck up, because it's the first time I've ever seen a movie where the crowd of teenage girls squealing and screaming. It doesn't happen with Harry Potter, nor did it happen with the Twilight movie that I saw at Clips, but keep in mind, this was at an early Saturday morning screening, and a Saturday morning screening usually is not the busiest. It's usually not until the afternoon, even for a big blockbuster like this. Usually when you go on Saturday mornings, that's usually the best time, because there's not many people there, and you can watch a movie without feeling like there's going to be a whole lot of people there to bug you. But yeah, for some reason, this was that time when, you know, these teens just wouldn't stop screaming. It's just like every time they were on screen, it's just like, yee! Like, it's just like, after a while, it got pretty ridiculous. But those are really my biggest complaints for the movie, but other than that, the film overall is a worthy conclusion to the series. The acting is still really good. All the actors in here are working well with the material given to them. The direction is really good by Francis Lawrence. The script, which actually appeals to the story itself, works great. There is a lot of good tension-filled moments in the action sequences, and the action sequences, once again, are really good. The idea of having this city becoming a series of traps for Katniss and her team shows off a lot of incredible potential for the action sequences to excel. And they do. They gather a lot of great tension. There's some pretty intense moments. My favorite one is the scene that with the mutts. You know, they start off like you're watching a scene out of Deep Rising or The Relic, but then the tension and the intensity grows because it leads into this lengthy action sequence with these impressive-looking creatures coming after the heroes. And even then, the scene in the subway terminal is filled with a ton of great action. And the whole building is like a death trap. I don't know if that was in the books or not, but kudos to them for making that scene as epic as it could be, man, because it just works so well. And I will give it credit for not trying to go for the same predictable ending to end the story. 20 of the final 30 minutes of this movie have so much happening, and you think you know where it's going to turn up. But the movie is clever enough to present itself in a way where you don't know what's coming next. Like in the last half hour, there's literally a bunch of huge twists and turns of events where some people are not who they claim to be, and you find out that there is more than one corrupt person in the ranks, and just the way the movie clearly doesn't let it out at all, but lets the viewer seize it and use their brains to tell what's going to happen next. I like that a lot. And as ending the main story that's been setting up, it's definitely a worthy conclusion. I really do think the biggest problem with the movie was splitting it up into 2 films. They shouldn't have done that. They should have done it into 1, because you would have probably had one of the great action trilogies out there if you had just done 3 films and not tried to make it the third film a 2-parter. But this series started off as a great series of films that didn't resort to the same bullshit levels that other young adult adaptations do, with a great first film and even better sequel. But by splitting Mockingjay up into 2 films, I really do feel like they end this on sort of a whimper that could have ended much more satisfactory had it just been 1 film. If it had just been 1 film, I feel like you really would have had something very special. But Mockingjay Part 2 does end it on a much better note, but because Part 1 it does end on a better note than Part 1 did, but it's still not on the same level as the previous 2 movies, the previous Catching Fire and the original. But I mean, it's not up to that level of greatness that the films were setting it up to be, but it's at least a conclusion that's better than what they were ending with in the last movie. But you really did expect a whole lot more, especially with how great the first 2 films were. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is another Christmas movie, a much better Christmas movie than Love the Coopers, coincidentally featuring also Anthony Mackie. This is The Night Before.
Not right. She home alone to me.
How wasted are you? You dare throw up. Is it still happening? It's still happening.
Night Before. Rated R.
This is a great movie. I touched on it on the Christmas in July video I did back in July, but if you don't remember that, 14 years prior, Ethan, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, lost his parents on Christmas Eve, and his 2 best friends, Isaac and Chris, played by Seth Rogen and Anthony Mackie, have been with him in support on this night, being an annual tradition going on Christmas Eve. However, because Isaac is going to be a father and Chris has become famous, all 3 decide to have one last Christmas Eve out in New York City. And like I said, this was a movie where they were trying to do something very different than the typical holiday movie, like something like I Love the Coopers. Yeah, that shtick has gotten old fast, so, do something in the vein of something like another R-rated holiday classic, a Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas from a couple years ago. And while this was an extremely funny holiday movie, it didn't quite hit as well with most audiences, so it's not hard to assume that the same would happen with this film in particular. But because I do very much like a very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas, I do really like The Night Before. It's an extremely hilarious, over-the-top Christmas movie, and there's just so much joy to come out of this film. The cast is great. You can't go wrong with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, one of the great people working in the business, and Seth Rogen, one of the top comedy actors of the time. Anthony Mackie, who, like I said, was in a much better Christmas movie this week than he was the previous week. But you also have a great cast that includes Michael Shannon, Mindy Kaling, Lizzie Kaplan, Jillian Bell, Lorraine Toussaint, Jason Mantzoukas, Jason Jones, Alana Glazer, Tracy Morgan, Miley Cyrus has a fun cameo. This movie makes her song Wrecking Ball actually kind of damn good, kind of damn amazing. Like, the way they talk about it in this movie and the way they play it in the film is just so well done. And, who knew it took a movie like this to make a song like that could have been sounded really annoying at first and made it something pretty fun. But then again, you can't go wrong with this director, Jonathan Levine, who really was one of those great directors working, because he did 50-50, he did Warm Bodies, and now this is definitely a winner for him. And I appreciate that this movie doesn't take itself too seriously. It goes over the top on so many levels, paying homage to different Christmas elements. You got Alana Glazer playing like a Grinch-like character who doesn't like Christmas all that much and likes fucking around with the guys. But movies such as Home Alone, even Home Alone 2, by playing the song "Nobody Ought to Be Alone on Christmas" by Darlene Love from Home Alone 2. That's in the first few minutes of the movie. There's also references to Die Hard and Big, and they don't feel forced when they do these references. They feel genuine. At the same time, within the over-the-top moments, they do find a lot of good emotional output from heavier moments in the film. I mean, that's more than enough to make this a very enjoyable film. There's definitely moments where it does feel a little underwhelming, but they're very few and far between. The Night Before is a very enjoyable, very fun film, very well done, over-the-top hilarity, and it's something that you definitely needed after an abysmal, manipulative piece of garbage like Love the Coopers was. I mean, that movie was just bleh. Like, if you're looking for a good Christmas movie that doesn't feel sappy, or as I put it in my review, the same sappy-wappy bullshit, The Night Before is definitely that movie to see. And it's definitely one of my favorite recent Christmas movies in general. And it won't be the last big R-rated Christmas movie we'll have this year that's actually turning out to be pretty good. Check back here in a couple of days and we'll take a look at the next one here. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and move on to some of the lesser movies from this particular weekend. Hunger Games and Night Before were kind of the big draws. But you don't ever hear people talking about our next movie, Secret in Their Eyes, despite a cast that includes Oscar winners like Nicole Kidman and Julia Roberts.
Maybe we could go about this a little less officially. Justice. I owe my daughter that.
Secret in Their Eyes, rated PG-13, November 20.
Yeah, that PG-13 rating basically is going to tell you that you're not going to see her sweet revenge in any disturbing way, any shape or form. But in this movie, you have Ray Caston, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Jess Cobb, played by Julia Roberts, who are two investigators in a private police unit led by the DA. When they receive an anonymous tip about a girl raped and killed, they rush to the scene. Ray realizes Jess's daughter, and the team falls apart due to the grief. 13 years later, Ray comes back to LA and says that after 13 years he has found a lead and convinced the DA to reopen the case. They find clues and leads unknown to them, and secrets from the past come to light as they start discovering the real chilling truth. Meanwhile, Jess, dissatisfied with the law, decides to take matters into her own hand and track down the killer, no matter what lengths she has to go to. So, it's basically another version of Eye for Eye, except this time around, the person who is responsible for this isn't as absolutely disgusting and annoying as Keith Sutherland was, nor is Julia Roberts as stupid as Sally Field was. But this was actually a remake of a 2009 Argentinian film of the same name, and based off of a novel by is called La Pregunta de sus Ojos by Eduardo Sacheri, and yeah, you could see that the film kind of goes all over the place, and it's directed by Billy Ray. Billy Ray's made a couple of movies as a director that have been not bad. Shattered Glass, Breach were pretty good. But he's written a lot of bad stuff. He's written stuff like Heart's War, which was not very good. Flight Plan. He has written some good stuff, though. State of Play, The Hunger Games, Captain Phillips. This one, however, definitely not one of his better films overall. This is actually kind of a lazy film when you really think about it. Because mostly it's just going all over the place. It never really gives you a clear indication of which direction they're going with it. It's trying to do two different movies in one film, and it really just doesn't work that way. Even Nicole Kidman's kind of not used very well in this particular film. In fact, nobody really is used well here. It's just kind of a bland, generic thriller that really doesn't lead to a lot of whole things in general, and it kind of has a predictable ending to it that never really goes anywhere. And just another example of a studio trying to make a movie and taking a remake of something much more popular and trying to send it to the States by not doing it very well in general. And most people have largely forgotten about this movie, and when you look at it, it's clearly hard not to see why. I mean, it's a movie where it's been done to death before, man. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, certainly one of the more intriguing movies of this Oscar season. We have Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara, who like to go out and eat, I'll just say it that way, in Carol.
Rooney Mara.
We gave each other the most breathtaking of gifts.
Carol. Own it, March 21st.
Oh, I bet they did. I'm pretty sure that they both gave each other some very nice carpets to do whatever you want to do with that. Okay, I'm done with that there. But anyway, this is Carol. This is a historical romantic drama set in the 1950s, based off of a romantic novel called The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith. And it follows a forbidden affair between an aspiring female photographer and an older woman going through a difficult divorce. The photographer is played by Rooney Mara, and the divorcee is played by Cate Blanchett. So if you had that weird fan fiction of watching the girl with the dragon tattoo and Elizabeth going to town on one another. Here's your movie right here. And yeah, it's definitely a movie that is very, very familiar of another movie that was very similar to this called Chloe, which I really enjoyed a lot. Amanda Seyfried and Julianne Moore this time were the ones who were doing the, the carpeting, if you will. But, okay, I said it was done. But, yeah, despite my lame attempts at some jokes, this actually is a pretty solid movie overall because of the actors really putting it together here. They really are doing a very good job here. This is made by a really good director, Todd Haynes, who has done stuff like Say, Velvet Goldmine, Far From Heaven, I'm Not There, did Mildred Pierce. So this is made by somebody who isn't simply going to do this for just a cheap way to get the teens into the movie theater so they can see two women making out with one another. I mean, this is a movie where it works even with the lesbian ideologies that they were trying to go for here, and it's a really good movie. It works because the two actors really work off each other very well. You also have a cast that includes Sarah Paulson, Jake Lacey, Kyle Chandler, and it's clearly a film that you can tell it's trying so hard to go for that Oscar, but it's never to the point where it becomes annoying or something where it's just like they're really trying hard to play on your emotions and all that. They don't really do that here. The film overall works really well because it does give you a very compelling story to follow here. And yeah, this is around a time when this type of stuff it comes around a time where this type of stuff probably would be frowned on then, but certainly nowadays it's definitely not, except if you're a part of a specific group of people, but that's a whole other thing altogether. But yeah, overall, a really good movie. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was very fun for what it was. The actors are really working off each other very well. They played their parts very well. The story is very compelling. I think it works. It's a very it's a movie that I don't think gets talked about a whole lot, but it's definitely worth checking out if you want to see some underrated works by Blanchett and Mara, who really are working well with each other in this film. I think it's a well-done film, and Todd Haynes delivers another winner here. So that's Carol. So on to the last film, Tom Hardy plus Tom Hardy in Legend.
The world never stood a chance.
Legend. Rated R.
Now some of you out there may be realizing that, haven't we covered this movie before? Well, sort of. Not really. This is actually the second time we've looked at a movie about the Kray twins. The first one being the 1990 film The Krays, which was directed by the director of The Cook, the Thief of What? No, it wasn't directed by him. It was Peter Medak who did that. I think that Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and His Lover was by Peter Greenaway. But I do remember talking about that movie, but I had never seen the film. But I did talk about this movie in particular, which I did see and I did really enjoy. So you got Tom Hardy in a dual role as this film follows the Kray twins' career and relationship together through their convictions for murder and sentencing to life imprisonment in 1969. This is written and directed by Brian Helgeland, who's directed a couple of decent films. A couple of films in particular we talked about on the show. Payback, A Knight's Tale, 42 was his most recent film. And, of course, he is an Academy Award-winning writer for, I think he co-wrote... he wrote L.A. Confidential. He won the Oscar for writing the script for that. And, yeah, this film overall I do remember seeing, and I did remember really enjoying. It was actually my first time hearing about the Kray twins in general. And Tom Hardy was really good playing both the roles in this movie. The other cast also includes Emily Browning, David Thewlis, Christopher Eccleston, Duffy the singer, Taron Egerton, Paul Bettany, Chaz Palminteri. A solid cast overall, a really enjoyable film. Not much to say about it except that I did like it. I thought it was pretty good. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Legend, with Tom Hardy giving a pretty good dual performance in this. And with that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, it'll be Thanksgiving weekend, the last weekend of November. And very mixed bag of movies to take a look at, including Pixar's latest film. After their success with Inside Out, we have The Good Dinosaur, or as I like to call it, Diet Land Before Time. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll touch on that on the next episode. But we will take a look also at one of the best movies of the year, Sylvester Stallone returning as Rocky Balboa, this time in a supporting role to Michael B. Jordan's Adonis Creed in Creed from director Ryan Coogler. We have Professor X and Harry Potter teaming up for a new retelling of Victor Frankenstein, written by Max Landis and directed by Paul McGuigan. And we also have Alicia Vikander in what is credited as her Oscar win for The Danish Girl, but let's be honest, she really won the Oscar for Ex Machina. But we'll take a look at The Danish Girl with Eddie Redmayne trying to get another Oscar this year, is after his Oscar the previous year. Need to say it doesn't work out that way, but we'll touch on those 4 films coming up tomorrow on the show, so stay tuned for that. But With all that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. With all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.